Привет из Москвы! С вами передача «Голубь мира», где разбираем крутые навыки, спрашиваем на английском, отвечаем на русском. Подтягивайте язык или смотрите перевод в тайм-кодах. Let's talk about cultural studies and let's start with the definition.
A lot of people think that they are just cultural men. They know, for example, some history of their country. Maybe they know some fairy tales, maybe some legends, but this is not enough because our civilization has a lot of different spots. For example, this is Maya, this is Aztecs, this is Egypt, this is some other countries. For example, we will ask people, what is the most ancient country in the globe, on the globe? And I believe that no one will tell 5 or 6 countries. By the way, this is Iran, then it is Israel, then it is Vietnam, then China, then Armenia. So, for example, if we'll talk about like 2000 years ago, Ethiopia country, it was like among very wealthy country in the world, but now it is not. The same, for example, with some other countries like Rome Empire. And we know some stories about Greeks. We know about some Turkish history, but we don't know a lot about other civilization because we grounded by the school books.
And when we look into the culture, so probably, let's say, if you want to learn something about the country, I would compare it with the knowledge. Like we need to learn about like a skeleton of this main body, and then like look into the bones. So how to understand what is the bare minimum and what might be the things that we may add like as additional things which might be required at certain point of time.
First step, you should understand that there's not enough to read just a book which was provided by the state. When you take your studies in the school or in the university, this is just quite minimum, and this is the less than, I don't know, 1% of the history. You should also understand that a lot of different cultures you do not know because they has been located very far away from you. For example, if you live in Russia, maybe you will learn some from Mongolia, maybe from China, maybe from Japan, maybe from Poland, Germany, Spain, France, but not about Chile, not about Ecuador, not about Barbados, not about St. Nevis, Cocos, Hawaii, and so on. And yes, when you are staying on your ground all the time and you are not cross the borders, it's quite enough. But for example, I will tell you that Mongolia at some point was making a wish to enter the Soviet Union to become a 16th republic, and Soviet Union was taking time and do not accepting this wish because of afraid of China. If we will talk about some borders which are changing a lot, we will find that some territories have been renamed like for 500 times during last 3,000 years. Some people do not know who was building pyramids, and they think that pyramids were built by slaves, but that's not true. Pyramids were built by professional builders, and they were well paid, well fed, and a lot of notes were taken about this. And not too much people know what, for example, ancient Romans eat, as they eat a lot of chicken eggs, and also, I don't know how to say, морской еж, sea hedgehog.
Probably sea hedgehog, maybe.
But maybe this is the wrong way to pronounce. But anyway, so for example, if you will take about the fairy tales about ancient Europe, you will learn that people were taking shower or were bathing not too many times, but it's also not true. And some tribes, for example, in Mexico, they were inventing temazcal and some other buildings to make themselves clean. So, for example, Romans, they were taking baths in thermos. They were heated water, and this was the very first time. This was before, for example, London Hotel Savoy. Was equipped with hot water and individual tubes just something about 150 years ago.
And when we look into the culture itself, obviously it might be contained of different elements. Like, for example, what do we think about the, like power that surrounded us, like how exactly we treat our parents, what do we eat, how do we say hello, how do we say goodbye, and what about, like our, how do we decorate our houses? So what are the components or maybe layers of the culture that we need to be aware of, so that every time we face something or someone, we at least know how their like parameters or configuration are set.
You was quite right. First, how to greet and how to say goodbye. Second, how to build houses, to produce food and store it. Third, it's how to decorate costumes and some other stuff which was using during the living. Then songs, then fairy tales, then historical roads were used by our ancestors to capture some hostages and to capture some resources.
And sometimes we also like may look into the culture in terms of like in the perspective from another culture. So obviously it's also piercing to each other, and it could lead to like appearing of the stereotypes or maybe like a brotherhood or everything like this. So how we should be aware of all of these things in order to make sure we understand the target culture more deeper, because it was influenced by something or someone else as well.
It's not easy to understand. For example, let's take slavery in the territory of America, and I don't know how to say крепостное право in Russia.
I think it's also might be called slavery because like it's a unique.
Okay, Russian way to make slavery. It's quite different, because in the land of America, the slaves could be killed or even hunted by dogs, or even be dropped in fire or in some other dangerous places to be punished. But for example, in Russia, those peasants who were working on the fields, they were quite useful resources, and they were skillful, and not often they were beaten or some other way to be punished. Yes, they have no documents, but they could dream about it, and sometimes they were given freedom. But slavery in, for example, USA, that's not about given the documents and to be free. Another example, also slaves, but in the Roman Empire, some of them were called immunities when they survive some disease like cholera or some оспа or some other, and then they were given special permission because they were helpful. They were collecting corpses, they were burning them, and in благодарность, as a greetings.
Gratitude.
As a gratitude, they were given freedom. But these slaves in Roman Empire, slaves on American land, and slave on Russian fields is quite different things.
And when it comes to evolving of the culture, because it's also might be influenced by anything, like maybe like something might be happening in the world, or maybe like something developing and also piercing or affecting it. So what might be the future of the culturology, given that the cultures also might be changing and evolving?
When you trying to go deep in the culture of different regions, you will find very strange things. Sometimes people eat very strange kind of food. Sometimes they use some tools in a very unusual way. For example, in Latin America, when people collect grape or some kind of same fruits, they ask very old women to spit in it, because it help to produce spirit, to help to produce wine. For example, if we will go to the north, we will find that some people will give you wife as a present for a night, not because they уважают,
Respect.
Not because they respect you, because they want to have a healthy children from you. And if we will compare to our culture in our lands, it's quite unusual, and sometimes acceptable even. But if you live with those people for some time, you will understand why it's so.
And my last question will be how knowing about cultural studies could help to make this world a better place.
Approximately 200 years ago, English aristocracy were taking their child to the ships, and they were going in Egypt, and they were going to India to look how people live. If you know just your country, your culture, your language, your way of thinking, this is not enough. You could be wider, you could be smarter, and if you will learn diversity of other countries, the more controversial, the better. You will be able to create unusual way to earn money, to create business, and maybe to build your small empire for your relatives.
А мы рассмотрели навык культурология и чем он полезен именно вам. Всем мира!